So good morning, and if you're watching online, maybe good afternoon or even good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Alister Chapman, and I am a cinematographer based in the UK and a Sony ICE, that's an independent certified expert. Now, one of the things that I'm known for is shooting in extreme conditions, so I shoot all kinds of things. And I'm going to go through that in this next 30-minute presentation about some of the problems that you might encounter shooting in hazardous, hard environments, in heat, in cold, in humidity, and things like that, and talk about some of the things I do, and also, as part of that, look at how I make money shooting in these extreme environments. So let's move right along. So these are some of the things that I shoot. I shoot hurricanes, I shoot tornadoes, I go up to the Arctic, I shoot the Northern Lights, and all of those natural extremes. And then a lot of that footage is sold and sold as stock footage, and that's how I make my money out of it. So the worst conditions that I've personally worked in, Category 5 hurricane. One of the most extreme ones of those that I particularly remember well was Hurricane Wilma in 2005, which hit Florida as a Category 5 hurricane, and we got right into the middle of that. Rain, well, hurricanes are really, really wet. So you have these 100+ mile-an-hour winds, tremendous amounts of rain for hours upon hours, and it's just driven, it's atomized, that rain, so water is just everywhere. There's no way you can get away from it. In terms of heat, because I just realized just before I started this presentation, my temperatures are all in Celsius because I'm from Europe. Out in the Arizona desert, shooting in August, shooting the monsoon season storms that are there, and that's typically 100 degrees, 100 degree plus, even in the shade. You stand out in the sun and you will bake in those conditions. In terms of Karasjok, actually this year was one of my coldest experiences. Karasjok is a town in the very north of Norway, about 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And in January of this year, when I was up there, it was -43°C, which is about the same in Fahrenheit, -43 degrees, roughly. And that's without any wind chill, and we're traveling around on snowmobiles and snow scooters, so there's a whole host of wind chill and everything else to add on to that. In terms of humidity, filming in the rainforests in Malaysia, and when you have really, really high humidity, 36°C, around just under 100 degrees, with really high humidity, that's when it really starts to feel hot, because even though you're sweating, because it's so humid, the sweat doesn't evaporate, it doesn't cool you, and you really feel the heat then. So heat and humidity, and dealing with that. First things of all, and I will talk about the cameras and equipment in a minute, is look after yourself. Drink lots of water and lots of isotonic fluids, because when you sweat, you lose a lot of your body salts, and that will make you feel tired, it's very fatiguing, and it's really not healthy. So when you're shooting in a hot environment, in particular in humid environments, just drink lots. Look after yourself. You could have the very best camera in the world, but if you're not thinking straight, if you're really dehydrated, you're not going to get the best shots, you're not going to get the best performance from yourself or your equipment. Slow down, take it easy, don't push yourself. If you go to these very hot countries like Malaysia and into the rainforest regions, and you look at how the locals do things, they do it in a much more slow manner. They don't push themselves, so they don't get overheated. Wear loose-fitting clothes, pretty much common sense, and watch out for the signs of heat stroke. So rapid heartbeat, if you feel your heart racing, headache, nausea, you're feeling sick, muscle cramps, dry skin, things like that. Watch out, those are the danger signs, and if you see any of those danger signs, it's time to do something about it. Now, what about your kit? You need to look after your equipment, really important. And one of the biggest problems that we have nowadays in our modern world is humidity and moving from a cool, air-conditioned environment to a warm, humid environment. And this is a problem I have actually when I do my storm chasing, when I go tornado chasing, is that we're sitting in that lovely air-conditioned car, and outside the car it could be 80, 84, 85 degrees, very, And if you take your camera from the car out into that humid environment, it's going to get condensation on it. Your lens will mist up, lenses will fog up, and there'll be condensation on the outside of the camera, but also there'll be condensation on the inside of the camera, and that is really dangerous because it doesn't dry out. Now on the outside of the camera, it'll evaporate and your camera will dry off, and when the lens is clear, you'll be able to shoot, but that moisture inside the camera over time will build up. And also be very, very careful storing your camera in a sealed case, such as a Pelican case, if it is damp. You put it in that Pelican case or that other sealed case, you close the lid, all that moisture is then sealed inside that case. It's not going to go away on its own, it's going to stay in there. And over time, that can cause corrosion to your camera equipment. So make sure anything you put in a sealed case is kept dry, or leave the lid open to allow it to dry out before you store it, before you put it away. Also think about putting silica gel and things like that in there to suck up some of that moisture. Now in terms of shooting storms, hurricanes, tornadoes and all of those things, this started for me in 1999 when my own production company got a commission from National Geographic to produce a special program for them called Twister Tours. And this was shot in DV cam, so going back a few years, and it was shot in glorious widescreen 16:9. I think we forget the days when we were trying to switch from 4:3 to 16:9 and all of those things. So it was quite an interesting challenge. And this is me shooting it. I had hair back then and it was brown. So I've got a DV cam camcorder shooting a tornado. We got really close to some very big, very dangerous tornadoes. And in fact, when this photograph was taken this particular evening, we saw 11 tornadoes in the period of about 3 hours. Really dramatic, really exciting. And the whole story of the film was actually about a couple from an English country village, beautiful, picturesque English village, and for their 25th wedding anniversary, they decided it'd be really cool to go tornado chasing. And that was just a really good story. We made the program, it was a big hit, and a lot of success. So this was shot in DV cam, £15,000, about 20,000, 25,000 at that time, dollars, was shot in that show on stock footage. We got great footage of our own, but we wanted to show some other tornadoes in other locations. And we spent a lot of money buying in stock footage. And I thought to myself, well, I can do that. I can go out, I can film these storms, and I can build up a library of stock footage and start making money out of doing that. So that's what I started to do, coming to here to the US each year and shooting storms, shooting tornadoes, selling it both for news and as stock footage. And something really that a lot of us as cameramen need to think about is a lot of the stuff we shoot has value. So I started shooting this stock footage in about 2000, 16:9, standard definition. I barely sell any of that now. Some of it, there is some value still for historical reasons, but really standard definition now, very hard to sell. Moved to HD in 2004 and started shooting on a Sony Z1 HDV camcorder, recording onto tape. And that was okay. It was a move upwards in terms of resolution, but many other aspects weren't quite so good. The low light performance wasn't so good. So from there I moved to XDCam HD with the Sony PDW-F350, and this was a really good camera because it was optical disc, and the optical disc system is incredibly robust. So when you're shooting in high humidity, very dusty environments and things like that, the optical discs performed much, much better than tape. And also with optical disc is you have an instant archive, so you keep the disc forever, should last for many, many years. But then solid state came out and I moved up to the Sony EX1, solid state recording, better image quality, better picture quality, and then 3D in 2010, 2011, and believe me, that was one hell of a challenge to shoot a tornado in 3D. But then 2012 moved up to 4K with Sony's F5 and R5 RAW recorder, and that's what I'm using now for the majority of my storm footage and things like that. So it's a beautiful 4K camera recording 4K RAW with amazing picture quality. So I'm going to just come out of my presentation for a moment. I'm just going to show you a video of some of my storm chasing footage to give you an idea of the sort of things that I capture. And all of this was shot last year. Okay, it's a little stuttery on the playback there. I think it's a limitation of the streaming that we're doing here on the booth. So let's come back to the slides. So, carrying on with my story. So again, seen many, many tornadoes. I think over the years that I've been doing it now, I've seen about 350 tornadoes, something like that. And done all sorts of crazy things. So the shot of me here sitting on the beach, this is actually in Florida waiting for a hurricane to come in. And that's a really stupid thing to do. To sit on a beach under an umbrella when there's lots of lightning and thunder around is not the most sensible things to do. But it does keep the camera dry at least. So I had a lot of fun doing these things. Now, my stock footage, I'm represented by Getty, so they sell my high-end material for me, and I've had footage in quite a few movies now, Planet Earth 2, Holidays from Hell, Storm Chasers, and then TV shows such as Mythbusters and many, many more. But I also sell a lot of footage via Pond 5 and T3 Media. And really something that we need to think about as cameramen these days, it's getting harder and harder to make a living in this business, budgets are getting cut and things like that, is that there is a high demand for stock footage. And more companies use it because it's expensive to send a crew out to do something, overseas especially. Now, if you're a freelancer, basically, and this is actually based on European law, so it might be slightly different here, unless you have actually signed away your rights or you are employed to shoot something, you own the rights in the footage that you shoot. And that footage has value, even very mundane footage. So one particular clip that I have on Pond 5 that actually makes me quite a lot of money is a shot of a puddle with rain falling in it. And you wouldn't think that that would have a lot of value, but it does, because it's a kind of a metaphor for a miserable day or a bad experience and things like that. So when you think about selling stock footage, you have to think about metaphors. What does a clip or a shot mean? What story could that convey? And then one of the keys to selling a lot of stock footage is your keywords. And writing keywords and things like that, that A, describe the shot from a descriptive point of view, and actually it's very often better to get somebody other than yourself to do that. You would need a third party, someone that hasn't seen the shot before, to look at it and describe it. And then also what it might stand for. So misery, happiness, global warming, all of these things, very important to have in your keywords when you do stock footage. Now, lightning, and I see I have a friend of mine, Andreas, here, who probably knows more about this than I do, seeing as he lives in Arizona, lightning's capital of the world. Shooting lightning with a rolling shutter camera is hard, but I am using Sony's F5 and other rolling shutter cameras to do it, and you can do it. I wish perhaps now, if I'd have known my F5 was going to last as long as it did, that I'd bought the F55, which has a global shutter. But if you're shooting lightning and you turn the shutter off on a CMOS camera or use the 360-degree setting, for the vast majority of lightning bolts, they will come out absolutely fine. You will get the odd one now and again that will only be part way down the screen, but most will come out absolutely okay. So that's one of my sort of top tips. Cache recording. A lot of cameras now have the ability to have a memory in the camera that fills up with footage, and then when you press record, the camera is able to capture a few seconds from before you press the record button. So that's really good for shooting lightning. You get your lawn chair out, sit back, point the camera at the storm, wait for the bolt of lightning, then press record, and you have it captured. Makes it much, much easier than pointing the camera at the storm and then just letting it roll. Because when you go into the edit suite to try and find those one-frame bolts of lightning, if you shuttle forwards through the footage, you don't see them at all. So you have to go back and then spend hours going through the footage. So cache record is a really good thing. And Sony's new R7 RAW recorder for the F5 and 55 has up to 30 seconds of memory cache, as well as 120 frames per second 4K. And I'm really looking forward to using that camera this year to shoot the storms. The combination of cache record and high speed will be absolutely fabulous. Currently, though, my camera of choice is the F5 because it has 4K 16-bit linear RAW. 16-bit linear RAW gives you incredible highlights. It also has an interval record function for time-lapse, very useful, and very high dynamic range with exceptional highlight handling. Second choice would actually be an FS7. I do actually have an FS7 as a backup camera. Now, lens choices. It's really hard to design and manufacture a really good wide-range zoom lens for a super 35mm camera. So I actually make quite a few compromises here. The lens that I use the most for the storm chasing is actually a Tamron 16-300mm with a Metabones adapter on the f5. That is not the best lens in the world. I know this. I know that if I was to get a nice Canon Cinema lens or a Fujinon Cabrio or something like that, I could get a better picture. But those lenses, if you start going up to these sort of zoom ranges, something like a 24 to 240 Ingenue, they are huge, they are unwieldy, and they are not really practical for a lot of what I do. And I don't have time to change lenses. You're trying to shoot a tornado. To get the best shot of a tornado, you have to get in its path. If you're behind it, it's wrapped in rain, you won't see it. You have to be in front of it. So that's inherently risky. And the tornadoes, very often, they only last for 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes. So you've got to see the tornado, stop the car, camera out, camera on the tripod, shoot, back in the car, move on, all in a minute, 90 seconds. And in that period, you want to get that 30-second, 1-minute shot. You haven't got time to change lenses. And there's dust and everything else blowing around. So this 16-300, I know it's a compromise, but it gets the shots. And sometimes you just have to sort of bite your tongue and say, yeah, the only way I'm going to get the shot is to use this lens. I can get 16mm, super wide, 300mm, nice and tight. So that's the lens I prefer to use because of that big zoom range. It's compact, it's lightweight and everything else. For nighttime shooting though, then I tend to go to my prime lenses, 14mm Samyang f2.8, the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 art lens, and another lens that's not listed on here because I've only just started using it is the new Fujinon 18-55 t2.9 E-mount zoom lens for the FS7. That is a really nice lens, and I really do recommend that. So the other thing I do, the other extreme, so most severe storms occur in hot weather. It's the heat and the heat energy in the atmosphere that drives lightning, thunderstorms, supercells, all of these things. The other thing that I shoot a lot of is the northern lights, and this is the opposite end of that temperature spectrum up in the Arctic where it's really cold, shooting the aurora. The northern lights occur around the Arctic Circle, so you need to be way up north, northern Alaska, northern Canada, Norway, and you need to go in winter because in the summer you have 24-hour daylight, so you won't see the northern lights. I prefer to go January, February, where you have the longest, darkest nighttime periods, which maximizes your chance of seeing the aurora. And the other thing is actually the colder it is, the clearer the sky tends to be, because when it's very cold, we're talking minus 20, those sorts of temperatures, the moisture in the atmosphere freezes out, so the clarity of the atmosphere becomes much greater, so stars and things like that, the aurora becomes more visible and easier to see. But of course that does make it challenging. There's always a lot of snow. We have to get around by snowmobiles. Snowmobiles are small, like a large motorbike. So there's only so much equipment you can carry. Everything's got to be rugged. It's got to be portable. And you really need very good sensitive cameras with excellent low light performance. So here's a photograph taken actually with an A7S of the aurora. It really is an amazing thing to see. So I'm going to show you a video of the northern lights. So it will be a little bit skippy and jumpy again, I'm afraid, but hopefully it'll give you an idea of what the aurora looks like. Okay, so one of the things I'm often asked is, because there's a lot of time lapse in that video, is what does the northern lights actually look like and how bright does it actually get? Well, it does get actually really quite bright, and it does move very, very quickly. In the last shot there, you actually could see the way the northern lights actually lit up the landscape. And it gets bright enough so you could actually read a book or a newspaper by it, and it really, really does move very, very quickly when it's very active. Now, there's a Norwegian saying, when you're shooting in the cold, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes, and that's very, very true. Cold is actually quite easy to deal with. It's just a case of having the right clothes, the right equipment. And also they have a saying that if your feet are cold, put on a hat. And if you are cold, putting on a hat really does help you keep warm, a good hat. So really make sure you've got the right clothes. Also, things are going to get very, very cold in some of these environments. Tripod legs, things like that. They are so cold that if you touch them, if you grab hold of your tripod with bare hands, your skin will stick to it, and then you're going to have to ask somebody to pee on you to get your hand off the tripod, and that's not very pleasant. And then you've got to get your hand off really, really quickly before the pee then freezes. Wires, cables, they become really brittle. Don't force anything. Battery life gets a bit reduced, although lithium batteries are much better than some of the older technology. One thing to be very careful of in extreme cold is LCD screens, because the LCD, the liquid, will freeze at around -40°C, -40°F. You do get a bit of a clue that that's about to happen because you'll see a dark edge start to appear around the edge of the screen. If you see that, it's then time to get that panel warmed up really quickly, because when it freezes, it will crack and it will shatter. And sometimes it's actually better to leave the camera outside rather than constantly moving it in and out from a warm, humid indoor environment to a cold outdoor environment. The actual opposite of the storm chasing problem, going from an air-conditioned car to outside. Shooting the Aurora, a lot of time-lapse, A7S, A7S II, my favorite cameras for that, with fast lenses, using 2-second apertures, 3200 ISO for an average Aurora, but when it's really bright, you can actually video it. Fast lens, f1.4 lens, something like that, and then you get down to maybe a 1/24th second shutter, and actually just real-time video of the Aurora now with these modern cameras. I'm going to have to move on because I'm running out of time, but wherever you go, whatever you do, be prepared. Take a good lens cloth. A chamois leather, the type of leather that you would use for polishing a car, is one of the best lens cloths you can get for wet weather because it will actually absorb moisture. A typical lens cloth just smears it around the lens a lot and doesn't really do a lot to help you. So get decent lens cover, bin bags and gaffer tape. Make temporary rain covers, always have some of those spare in your kit. Get the right clothes, be weather aware, because a lot of this weather can kill you. I have had friends of mine killed storm chasing, so be weather aware, understand it, be alert, know what's going on around you. Drink lots of fluids in those hot climates and let people know where you'll be and what time you'll be back, or what day, week, month, whatever, just in case something does go wrong, because from time to time it will. So thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting. We've got a bit of time to take a couple of questions if there are any questions, very quickly. Yes, sir.
The time lapses of the storms, are you using just straight recording in real time and then speeding it up, or using the interval?
Right, so yeah, with the storms, generally that is real-time video that's been sped up, because you never know quite how fast things are going to evolve and what might happen. And switching from time-lapse to real-time takes a little, seconds, but you still got to make that switch. So I prefer to shoot those in real time and then speed them up, because sometimes it's a very minor speed up. Some of this stuff, especially with the lightning storms, you may have a bolt of lightning occurring every 2 or 3 seconds. It's literally bang, bang, bang. So you don't want to speed it up too much, and time lapse would miss a lot of those lightning bolts and things like that. Depends, sometimes time lapse works, sometimes, nighttime time lapse might be better, daytime, real time, and speed it up. So a bit of both. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. Enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy it.